Hello and welcome to the Chronicles of Dragonlance. In this show, my co-host and I delve into the novels and stories of the incredibly famous and lengthy fantasy series Dragonlance. We're going to go book by book and delve into the secrets that made this series so groundbreaking and legendary.
Hello, and welcome back to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. My name's Jonathan Howard, and with me today is...
Shivam Putt, hello.
And in today's episode, we are picking up at Chapter 18, Bite at the Lift, Bupu's Cure for a Cough.
Yes. This is one of the pivotal early action scenes. Well, I guess it's a big deal scene, and it's definitely like a nice change of pace from the way the book has been going so far. We've had a lot of grimness leading up towards Xak Tsorath with Riverwind getting blasted, with, all of the draconian stuff. This is both a humorous section and just a really fun and well-written section that just moves really fast. This is one of my actual favorite sections of the book just because it shows where Margaret and Tracy's real skill in describing things goes, in making this sequence of basically, in this chapter, Tanis and the crew have to find a way to get from the top of the city of Xak Tsorath down to the bottom. And this is a D&D game, right? In a D&D game, adventuring through the dungeon and going through floors is a big deal. But you could have just had they just, descended down some stairs and had some torches. But no, they decided they needed to have a gimmick. And the gimmick was hilarious and really well written.
It's so... In a movie, this would be a big set piece action, right?
Oh, yeah. That's the word I was looking for, set piece.
The two cauldrons moving up and down, Gully Dwarves hanging from them, Draconians leaping from one to the other.
And the mist and the steam coming up. I mean...
This would be a huge scene.
This is the most cinematic sequence so far.
Absolutely.
And we've had a dragon. Right?
Absolutely. It's just fantastic. So to catch everyone up, if you don't remember, the last time the companions had just made it inside to the first layers of the ruined city of Xak Tsorath. They had just met some Gully Dwarves, and we had some comments about the unfortunate portrayal of Gully Dwarves. We learn about this giant makeshift elevator. Right before this chapter starts, the companions had decided that they needed to use the elevator for themselves, and they were about to bum rush some Draconians. That's where we pick up.
I feel like they hadn't decided so much as it had been decided for them by Bupu running forward and grabbing them. But the way the chapter just kind of starts is hot mist rose from two holes in the floor, swirling around whatever was nearby. Between the two holes was a large wheel around which ran a gigantic chain. A tremendous black iron pot hung suspended from the chain over one of the holes. The other end of the chain disappeared through the other hole. 4 armored draconians, 2 of them swinging leather whips and armed with curved swords, stood around the pot. They were visible only briefly, and then mist hid them from view. Tanis could hear the whip crack and a guttural voice bellowing. That is a really cool paragraph. It sets this whole scene, and you're like, oh, we're deep in the dark area of this ruined city. Did we talk about last time about the city of Xak Tsorath?
Yeah.
Xak Tsorath is on a cliffside. It was built around a lake, and then the cataclysm hit. It drops the ground down to create the new sea, and half of Xak Tsorath slopes down the side of the mountain, falling into the cliffs. So they've got this kind of jury-rigged system of pots and chains that they use to go down. And when you think about it, that's actually a really ingenious system of weight-driven pulleys that they're using to get up and down. For all that they talk about Gully Dwarves being just idiots and mentally deficient people, these guys have figured out a really clever means of using... I mean, it's complicated to build a whole chain system that'll go up and down, because that definitely did not exist before the cataclysm.
Oh, they never say who built it. I kind of thought the Draconians did, but probably not, because it's giant cauldrons, and it's probably just makeshift construction that the Gully Dwarves put together.
There's no way the Draconians built this.
Yeah.
For the most part, the Draconians they have wings, they have glide abilities, they have the ability to climb and stuff. They're not going to waste time with pots and chains. They're not gnomes. But you know who is? In the first origin story of the Gully Dwarves are half gnomish, half dwarven. They've got the ingenuity, they've got the ability to do this. This is complex inventionism, and it goes to show even more how just racially maligned these people are.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Gully Dwarves is a personal pet peeve of mine, and it just irritates me deeply.
So we have the Draconians, and they're yelling at the dwarves to make the system work. And, he's yelling, And right now, none of them are there. They're all surrounding the companions who have met them. If you remember, Raistlin had cast a charm spell on them, so they're all charmed right now by Raistlin.
Yeah, they're all very happy and very jovially leading the companions down. But I love that. Oh, here's how it goes, right? Like the Draconian goes, "You louse-ridden dwarf vermin, what are you doing holding back there? Get in this pot before I flay the filthy flesh from your nasty bones." Right? And the Draconian stops mid-sentence, its eyes bulging out of its reptilian head as Caramon emerges from the mist, roaring his battle cry. So this giant 6.5 foot tall dude, like when you're expecting a bunch of like 2 feet tall, like filthy little dwarves, and then instead this giant battle-hardened warrior comes swearing oaths and swinging his sword, the Draconian is just like, what the you know, he lets out a yell and a choking gurgle as Caramon grabbed the dude around his scrawny neck, lifted off its clawed feet, and hurled it against the wall. And the body hits the wall with a bone-crunching thump. Meanwhile, Sturm comes down there, yells out his knight salute, and then lops off the head of another Draconian who didn't see him coming. So that's 2 down.
The next 2, they decide that they're not cut out for this. They were not expecting to have to deal with warriors today. They thought they could harass Gully Dwarves.
These guys have been given the crap assignment of dealing with the Gully Dwarves. They are not paid nearly enough to deal with a bunch of angry actual soldiers.
So they jump in the cauldron, release the break, and it starts to go down.
Yeah.
And Tanis is like, hurry up. We can't let them get reinforcements.
And Taz is like, wrong. The reinforcements are already coming up, buddy. There's 20 of them. Deal with it. So these pots are huge.
Yeah. And then Cameron just jumps into the cauldron to fight the other 2 ones. And all the Gully Dwarves that were with him are just standing around watching. Then the rest of the party, they all just grab the chain, start climbing in, jumping in. Again, this is so movie cinematic. I could just see the long shot from far away where you see the chains rising and falling and all these people jumping on them. And
oh, yeah, dude, it's so good.
Then cut into the cauldron where Caramon's in there fighting them out. Yeah, it's very cinematic.
No, I mean, think about it. Now, the other thing is, it's not just cinematic. This is pure D&D, this one. This scene was, per Tracy Hickman himself, this was taken right out of the playtest of the original modules, and this has Tracy's fingerprints all over it. Because if you've ever seen Tracy's Killer Breakfasts at Gen Con or dealt with any of his like philosophies of gaming, his method is to escape forward. If there's a door, you barrel through it. If there's an enemy, you run through them. You don't dodge. You don't hesitate. There's no 10-foot poles. You're not looking for traps. If there's a trap, you discover it by setting it off. That is the way you go. He is definitely the type of guy who runs forward every time. So when you look here, Caramon runs to stop the Draconian operating the lift, but was too late. The creature left the mechanism turning and dashed towards the pot. With a great bound, it leaps in after its companion. Caramon, on the principle of don't let the enemy get away, jumped right into the pot after it. Which is, it's so D&D, and you can just see like the DM is sitting there holding his hands in his face in his hands, while one of the characters just says, "Okay, well, I'm jumping in after them. Okay, well, roll for it. Make me a dex check, see what happens." It's like, all right, I got an 18. Okay, well, you jump into the pot. Now what do you do? And then the player playing Sturm is like, that big idiot. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to jump down after him. Because Caramon, his extra weight is making the pot go down even faster. Because he is way heavier than all those Gully Dwarves. But the problem is, that makes the other pot come up that much faster.
I'm quickly realizing, I don't think I recognized it when I read through these the first couple times and as a child, is that Flint is comic relief.
100%.
I don't think I ever caught that on my initial readings. And now I'm reading it and he's even more than Taz, right?
Uh-huh.
Flint is the comic relief because here he is. They're all on the chain. They're climbing down and he slips, falls, hits his head, and then Caramon steps on him. I don't know if at any fight so far in the book, if Flint has been useful in the fights.
No, Flint has spent most of the time running, crying, screaming, being like, you idiots, what are you doing? It's like, I'm too old for this. Flint, in the entire trilogy, is not a fighter. He can fight, but he's there more to be the advisor, more to be like, Tanis's like elder, like basically father figure type. But also, he is there to give Tasselhoff a straight man to play off of. He is exactly like Larry in the Three Stooges, right? Like he's just sitting there, he's bemoaned, he's bedraggled, he gets kicked the crap out of regularly. He gets maltreated left and right. Nobody respects him, but he's there because Mo and Curly need somebody to bounce off of. And Tasselhoff is all of the Stooges in one, right? It feels not even Three Stooges, but like Abbott and Costello, or like any of those classic, Goof and Straight Man.
Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, Laurel and Hardy. That's even better than Abbott and Costello. It's exactly that. It's just like there's a straight man and then there's the comic. But man, poor Flint just keeps eating crap this whole time.
And not that long ago, right? He passed out and fell in the water and had to be dragged out of it.
Yeah. And he's thrown from the boat into the Crystal Mirror Lake. He's dragging onto the back of the Griffins. He's not having a good time, this old man.
So they're fighting in the pot, and all the companions are in there now. There's these two Draconians, and the pot starts to sway back and forth. It's barreling downwards as the pot below them that is full of Draconians is shooting up towards them.
Oh, Flint is like, "Get off me," he roared from the bottom of the pot. Blinded by his helm, he was being slowly crushed by Caramon's feet. Poor guy. Oh my God. This scene is beautiful. It's so much fun. It's so silly. And I don't know, I love reading classic D&D fight scenes. It's just, this is a set piece that I've used in my own games because it's so ingenious. It's so much fun. And at low levels, when you guys are weak and we're like not very strong, you don't have a lot to do. Having environmental set pieces gives the players a sense of epic agency, and it gives them a feeling that there's something really cool they can still do, even though like the wizard might be like, "Look, I've got 2 spells for the day, and then I'm just kind of throwing a dart." But if you give them a big set piece where there's a whole lot of maneuvering going around and the opportunity to do things that are not just combat related, you can have a grand old time. And this is just absolute delight. Absolute delightful scene.
Well, that's a good point because, as you said, he only has 2 spell charges, but he and Riverwind are still up above watching all this, and they're trying to stop the wedge, and Raistlin uses his Staff of Magus to jam the will mechanism, which, I mean, I guess he's got to know it's indestructible, or else I don't know if I'd be jamming my super special magic staff.
I don't know about that one. Like, that definitely feels to me like one of those lucky rolls, you know what I'm saying?
A lot of plot armor on the Staff of Magus right there.
Well, okay, the Staff of Magus, first off, the strongest artifact in Kryn, right? Like, it is hands down one of the strongest, most powerful, like, magical pieces of equipment on the plane. And Raistlin knows that it's a very powerful staff. He knows that it's owned by one of the ancient great mages. He doesn't know everything it does because he's like 3rd level, but he knows that the staff can handle itself. It's got some kind of sentience or some kind of like capabilities. And so, Riverwind's standing there and he's looking down at the hole and he's like, "What do I do? How do we deal with this?" And he's spinning around, stumbling over, Gully Dwarf running towards the mechanism. And he's looking at this chain. The chain is spinning and he's like, "Do I grab it and stop it? Is that a thing that's going to happen?" And you can see the player's face as this is happening. He's going like, "What would happen if I grabbed this chain?" And all the other people are like, "Don't do it, you idiot. You will lose you just got flayed by a dragon. Maybe let's not stick our hands into a giant spinning chainsaw."
Yeah. Gonna be a big dex check and strength check there.
Yeah, like I feel like that's one of those ones where it's like, okay, you got mega negatives on this. But Raistlin, on the other hand, sits there, watches for timing, and then jams the Staff of Magus between the wheel and the floor, probably into like a chain link. And Riverwind's like, that thing is going to snap. But lo, the staff does not snap. And so here we are. Raistlin's got the thing stopped.
And then he commands all the Gully Dwarves to jump on the chain that the Draconian's pot is on in the hopes that all the extra weight will make it start to fall back down and the companions come back up. While this is happening, said Draconians are already leaping across.
Yeah, because it turns out that the 2 pots are now lined up next to each other. Halfway down the friggin' chain. Think about it though. Okay, these are 2 gigantic cauldrons. They're like, obviously must have been meant for rendering fat or rendering like, doing whatever kind of just mega processing is going on. Lifted up hundreds of feet into the air by a chain mechanism that's on a pulley with a counterweight system, which is just like insane. What happened if it stops halfway? We're screwed forever. How do we go up?
Well, and the counterweights in this regard are the Gully Dwarves.
Yeah.
That's what they're being used as, is that when they want to go up and they have to run back up by themselves.
Yeah, basically.
They bring it down and then they have to run back up.
Then if you've ever seen a bunch of kindergartners, you understand the appeal of going down a slide and then running back and climbing up the stairs to go down the slide again. Not gonna lie, it sounds like it would be hella fun to jump down into a pot that just goes wee.
Good point.
But yeah. So yeah, they have a big giant battle in the middle of the now stopped chain. They're throwing draconians over. They're swinging the pots back and forth. It is a vibrant scene. Caramon loses his balance, falls forward, and it comes really close to tipping the whole damn pot over before Sturm managed to yank him back and cause it to rock like they're in a boat. And then, what do we do? Tanis is like trying to fight these people, and he falls over Flint, who knocks him down again. And then Tanis staggers against the side of the pot and stares downwards. And now the mists part, and he sees the city of Xak Tsorath below him, and he's like, oh no, we're like swinging in midair, and it's dawning on him exactly what the hell's going on.
Hundreds and hundreds of feet above the ruins of the rest of the city.
Right? Like, yeah, they just keep fighting the Draconians. And Tanis is like, please, somebody bring that back up. Then Raistlin finally gets into action, and he's like, all right, Gully Dwarves, come here, my friends, he said swiftly. The spellbound Gully Dwarves gathered eagerly around him. Those bosses down there want to hurt me, he said softly. The Gully Dwarves growled. Several frowned darkly. A few shook their fists at the pot full of Draconians. But you can help, Raistlin said. You can stop them. The Gully Dwarves stared at the mage dubiously. Friendship, after all, went only so far. All you must do, Raistlin said patiently, is run over there and jump on that chain. He pointed to the chain attached to the Draconian spot. The Gully Dwarf's face brightened. This didn't sound bad. In fact, it was something they did almost daily when they missed catching hold of the pot. Raistlin waved his arm. Go, he ordered. And TRH drops a note here saying, this is exactly how it happened in the game. And I'm like, that is such a... If I was a DM, I'd be like, shedding tears of joy if my players were doing cool things like this. So they all go, run down.
Except for Bupu. Bupu stays with them.
Yeah, except for Bupu, who Margaret apparently calls Bupu, but you're never going to hear me say that. Sorry, not going to happen.
Oh, is that how she pronounced it, Bupu?
She can pronounce it, but she also pronounces it like Hama instead of Huma. And I'm like, no, that's not okay.
With the help of the Gully Dwarves now on the chain, the companions in their pot come back up to the top, and Sturm's saying, we have to retreat. We can't go this way. And Tanis says, but there's no other way. We need to get down there. Bupu says she knows a secret way. One with no draconians. There's some slight arguments, and then it's like, well, what can we do? We either go down the pot, fight the draconians, or we trust the Gully Dwarf, who so far hasn't led us astray. Yeah, and of course, Goldmoon's going around healing people with her staff, which says that the scene is over in the parlance of D&D. And Bupu is like, I know a secret way. I'm not going to let the bosses get you because you pretty. And I'm like, oh, Bupu. She leads him to a hidden door. She digs through her pouches and she finds this hidden item, her magic item. And Raistlin's interested. Taz is really interested. And I think she pulls out like a dead rat. Okay, so here's the thing. Bupu's rat is maybe one of the most famous magical items that is not a magical item. Just famous, like, I don't know, iconic things in Dragonlance. It's like a totem? Yeah, like a totem or like whatever it is. She pulls this thing out. She pretends to cast some kind of like spell or something. But Tasselhoff is like, yo, you know what? I'm a rogue and I can see these things, and I can see that she stepped on a thing that opens the door. She probably tripped on it once while carrying the rat and now thinks that's how it goes. But it's weird because this is also one of those moments which is like the science and logic mind versus the faith mind, which is like, look, I hold the rat up, the door opens. If I hold the rat up and I stand here and I chant, the thing happens. And the scientist guy's like, I can demystify that. I know you're stepping on a pressure plate and it's just going to make the thing open. But to the true believer, does that matter? No, not really. Like, doing this action gives me peace and makes the thing happen. Yeah, it's not necessary, but at the same time, the intrinsic value of the placebo effect of what I'm getting from this is worthwhile. So shove it. Like, why destroy the magic if it's like not hurting anybody? I'm just going to go out on a limb and make a guess is that in a later book, it turns out the rat actually is magical, right? No. Oh, I would have thought that maybe at some point someone wrote a short story. Yeah, you would have thought that at some point, like, her rat cure ends up being like just this magical, mystical thing, but they never go into that. And I think part of that is just because they're content to let some things just be. Like, it could be magic. They just don't need to tell you that, and it doesn't need to be spelled out because Bupu, the character, is so important to giving Raistlin humanity.
and important to just showing what it means to be a simple person who's got faith, who's got kindness and generosity, who wants to help out. Just let her do the thing. You know, if grandma comes and gives you food, or like if your neighbor's grandma comes and feeds you and it's not something you love, you still take it and say, thank you, grandma, give me another one, because you're being generous and she's being generous and you accept her kindness for what it is, right? I don't know. I just love it. I love Bupu's interactions with Raistlin because I think they're so human and they're so like, look, she's giving you everything that she's got the capability to do. She's not a genius. She's not a wizard or a fighter. She doesn't have a ton, but what she has, she's sharing without reservation. Even though he casts a spell on her, half of that's still just her innate generosity.
And we'll find out later, but the spell wears off and Bupu's still around.
Yeah, exactly.
She sticks around, and she's one of the only interactions where Raistlin has where I think he's confident that that Bupu is not have some ulterior motive, right?
Exactly.
And so he can be honest with her because she's being honest with him.
Exactly.
And he's so edgelordy and disgruntled about being an angry teen that he can never trust that someone is just being straight with him.
Yeah, but these are Gully Dwarves. They have no guile. They have no like capacity to be.
The Highbulp has some. We'll find out.
Well, the Highbulp is a douchebag, but Bupu on her face of it is basically exactly what she is. She doesn't want anything from you. She is just there out of the kindness, right? And I love that. So Raistlin's like, how did you open it? And she pulls out the rat. Bupu's like, the Kender Goes explains, like I just said. Bupu turns to him because she's not an idiot and can speak common. And she's like, no, bro, it's magic. She strokes the rat lovingly, puts it back in her back and says, come on, let's go. And they go down this passageway. It's this gross 4-foot long, like sewer pipe, basically. They climb down and they're like, come on, let's go. The bosses can't follow. And Tan's like, yeah, well, I guess they're not going to go through there with their wings or anything. And Sturm's like, I don't want to do it. And then suddenly they hear the wheels creak and the chains start to spin. And they're like, you know what? Maybe we'll go in there after all.
Tasselhoff, he's like, I'll go first. And he just jumps in and slides right through. And Karaman's like, I don't think I'll fit. And he's like, it's so slick with slime. You'll slip through like a greased pig.
That's so gross. Such a good image, but also, oh, God. Like, if this was a PG-13 book, they would have been something like, you'll come out like a birthing canal, like a kid in a birthing canal or something. It's like, it's disgusting.
This is not the first time in this book where they've been through some sort of thing. And all I can think to myself is, when do they ever clean themselves up? Because they've got to be...
Yeah, they've got to be just grimy as crap, right?
Yeah, do they ever take wipe their faces off?
Just jump into a river, please, for the love of God. Like, think about it. These dudes are right now carrying half of the swamp of Xak Tsorath outside of them.
Yeah.
They're carrying whatever acid has been from the dragon breath, and then going through a city that's been dead for 300 years, and now jumping into the sewer. They're going to come out the other side, and Goldmoon's just sitting here in like leather and furs.
Yeah,
so she is probably just looks like a dying animal.
Well, and they all have hair, like long hair.
Oh yeah, long hair too.
It's like, man, your hair is caked to your face and your neck, and
think about Flint's beard, and like Schmutz and like Sturm's mustache. Oh.
They don't want us to think about it, I don't think, because they never mention it, right?
Hell no, they don't.
They talk about all this thick, gross slime, and then by the next scene, we don't talk, it's gone.
We're never thinking about it ever again.
So they make it through this pipe.
I love that Sturm is like, this is insane. I hope you realize that.
Raistlin has a coughing fit, and here Bupu goes through her bag again, and she comes up with a different magic item. Well, one, she comes up with an emerald, and it's pretty funny because it's huge, and Raistlin's eyes like bug out when he sees it, and she's like, oh, you want my pretty rock? And she just hands it over to him. And then she has a dead lizard tied on a leather thong, and she tells Raistlin that if he wears it on his neck, it'll cure his cough. And he politely says, I'm good. I don't need your dead lizard tied to a leather thong to cure my cold.
I don't know, man. Like, I've known some hippies in my day. That emerald is like so deeply symbolic in the story just because it represents, again, like her just raw generosity. Like, she's giving you untold wealth for nothing. And Margaret basically loves this scene, and she's basically made it canon herself. That it's like, look, Raistlin then casts a spell on this emerald later on to protect Bupu basically forever.
Oh.
It's like the emerald will protect its owner in a life-threatening situation and can only be used by Gully Dwarves, gnomes, or Kender. Just because she's like, nope, this is now special. But this lizard cure, basically, Tracy Hickman was like, he had this idea in 1986 when he was hospitalized for kidney stones. The doctor had mistakenly overestimated the amount of Demerol I'd required, and this non-smoking, non-drinking, drug-free Mormon was sent on a three-day ride to my own personal fantasy land. Naturally, this didn't prevent visitors, though. Margaret came by with something that the game had cooked up. On a leather thong was hung a hideously large rubber lizard. Bupu had sent along the lizard cure. On the third day, or so they told me, they wheeled me out of the hospital. The nurses were concerned about me as I sailed blissfully by them, dutifully wearing my lizard cure around my neck. I love that so much. But yeah, the lizard cure, man, that's like another of those things where it's just become a persistent meme in Dragonlance. It's just one of those things. It's cool. It's unique. It's different. And I love it. It's like, that's the sort of thing that just gives flavor to your campaigns, right? Like, it could have just been a meaningless, like, whatever, story bit, but instead it turns into this iconic thing that now latches onto your memory.
Well, and it could have just been she led them down the pipes and then they were to their next spot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of this little vignette where he's coughing and Bupu shows her concern and she gives up this valuable treasure without even thinking about it because she's looking for some way to cure him. And it's, another one of her magical items that they all find disgusting, but she's willing to share with them.
Yeah.
I love how this little romp down the slimes covered sewers ends, where they're going down these pipes again. At some point they say, oh, we hear something. It's other Gully Dwarves because this is what they use to get back up to the top to come back down again. And Bupu's like, what are you guys doing here? Get out of the way. So they leave. And then it starts the pipes are on, it forks and it becomes a slide and they shoot through. And then they're like, gas, it's gas. We're being poisoned. No, they slid into this room and the first one hit these 300-year-old bags of flour because they've landed in an ancient ruined bakery. And the gas was just the flour exploding when Taz hit it.
To be honest, though, I don't think this is like an ancient bakery. I think this is like the Draconians and Dragon armies are using this as a current bakery.
Got it.
Because old flour just becomes rock hard.
Oh, that's true. If there's any water.
Well, actually, with the water around here, it probably would have rotted like a long time ago. However, the point is, imagine the scene in your head of these guys just flying through a garbage-ridden, slime-covered chute, launching out, and then just poofs of white come out.
Imagine what they look like. Imagine what they look like when this is over. This is how they go for the rest of this whole scene. Don't imagine them in their cool armor and other things. Imagine them covered in dry, crusted slime covered with flour. That's what they really look
here it is.
like.
So, Karamon's spiked armor and broad girth had slowed him down enough that he was able to crawl out of the pipe. But he was bruised and battered and covered with green filth. By the time Tanis arrived, everyone's gagging in the powdery atmosphere. And then later on down that page, where's Tasselhoff? Asks Tanis. And he's like, here I am, says a choke and miserable voice. Tanis whirls around. Tasselhoff, at least Tanis presumed it was Tasselhoff, stood before him. The Kender was covered from top knot to toes in a thick, white, pasty substance. All Tanis could see of him were two brown eyes blinking out of a white mask. So basically, he's been covered in slime and water and schmutz, lands on this pile of flour, and pretty much just covers himself in full-on Play-Doh. It's just revolting.
And that's how chapter 18 ends.
Not with a bang, but a whimper. Oh, man.
Chapter 19 is the Broken City, and I believe it's pronounced Highbulp.
Yep. Highbulp Phudge the Great.
Phudge the First, the Great. And I can't help but think of the Fudge books, like the Fudge Kid books.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Tales of Fourth Grade Nothing, Judy Blume.
Yeah.
Fudge-mania and...
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I read all of those. I was a fourth grader.
Is your son reading them now?
He could. We just finished reading Rats and Nims, so he's probably old enough to read those books.
We have Alex is reading The Witches right now. He's on a Roald Dahl.
Oh, that's a good book.
He just finished.
Man, The Witches is such a better book than movie, and the movie is great. But that being said, this chapter starts with talking about the cataclysm and talking about what actually happens to Xak Tsorath. The night of the cataclysm had been a night of horror for the city of Xak Tsorath. When the fiery mountain struck Kryn, the land split apart. The ancient and beautiful city of Xak Tsorath slid down the face of the cliff into a vast cavern formed by huge rents in the ground. Thus, underground, it was lost to the sight of men, and most people believed the city had vanished entirely, swallowed up by new sea. But it still existed, clinging on the rough side of the cavern walls, spread out upon the floors of the cavern, and there were ruined buildings on several different levels. So basically, this is now a vertical city and not a horizontal city. And they kind of give you an idea of what's going on here, and that these people have landed in a bakery. Tanis goes and he sees water is flowing down streams, and he starts following one of these, and he sees how all the tall buildings that once lined the street toppled against each other, forming an archway of broken marble slabs, and it's just suddenly down here, it feels a lot more like a psycho crazy ruins than it did up above.
Yeah, I get a MC Escher kind of feel, right? Of like
Oh,
some
yeah.
of the buildings are sideways, some of them are straight up, some of them are upside down.
Exactly that.
They're all a jumble.
Well, it's like if you, for instance, just imagine you've got a tablecloth, and on the tablecloth, you've built a Lego city up, and you've glued it onto it so it's attached to the tablecloth. And then you pull half the tablecloth off, so now it's like half on the table and half hanging down. The way those buildings would be sticking out horizontally is the way Xak Tsorath looks now.
Yeah. They do some good description about how silent and gloomy and chilling it is. There's
and how it's getting warmer down here, and how it's
only the sound of the running water. Oh, and here's where the party cleans themselves off as much as they can because they have all this running water.
Right, and it's from like New Sea, so it's kind of clean, I guess. I don't know, but they have to go to this Plaza River, plunging ankle deep in the water. So yeah, you get the feeling that they probably washed this crunch off them. And they're going down because they need to meet the Highbulp, who is the head of the clan of Gully Dwarves that lives down here. And so we see a lot of description of the city of Xak Tsorath as they're climbing down. And Tanis is asking questions like, who lives around here? And who lives in the reconstructed buildings? And Bupu's like, the bosses. And Tanis like, how many? And Bupu's like, one, and one. Counting until she uses up all her fingers. 2, no more than 2. Gully Dwarves counting to 2 is like one of those.
This is a reoccurring.
Ugh.
They ask her how many there is of something.
And the answer is always 2.
Yeah.
But it's just so insulting. It's so unnecessary.
And I know they're trying to do it for laughs, but it gets real tired and it's real sad.
It gets real tired, and it's one thing that if you read later Dragonlance novels, you will see that they abandoned. I mean, except for like when they're telling stories and wanted like have some kind of, it shows up on occasion, but I'm glad that it doesn't show up as much as they just kind of, people do their best to just ignore it. And even Weiss and Hickman just don't go back to it later, except for Bupu when she needs to be there for symbolic reasons.
So they're at the edge of this waterfall, this plaza, there's a waterfall, and they're looking down. And they ask, well, how do we get to the Highbulp? Because he's down there. She's like, vines. And then she points, and at the edge of the waterfall are many strong green vines that lead down the cliff face. And so they don't have a choice. They reluctantly start to climb down them, except for Raistlin. He's going to use one of his spell charges here and cast Featherfall. Bupu is like almost dies, and Tanis lets her know.
The trick here is that one of the things, so far, Raistlin knows that the Staff of Magius does 2 things. One is it can turn on its light bulb when he goes Shirok and turn it off when he goes Dumak. Or 2, he can cast Featherfall with it. One of the most powerful artifacts of all time, and the only thing he knows how to do is turn the damn lights on and off and jump off a cliff.
I didn't realize that it was it's from the staff. I thought this was one of his charges.
Yeah, the way they explain that is like, when you look at that passage, standing on the edge of the cliff, he says softly, Featherfall. The crystal ball at the top of his staff flared, and Raistlin jumped off the edge of the cliff, right? So by that staff flaring, that's how you know it's a staff triggering, as opposed to just a spell triggering.
Well, and I guess there's no components or any magic words either, right?
No, Featherfall is a verbal component. You just got to say Featherfall.
So there's a tiny little moment here between Riverwind and Goldmoon. It turns out she's afraid of heights. And so Riverwind and her starts arguing with her. This is how you know they've been a couple for a long time, because Riverwind knows just what buttons to push to get her to get her mad. And so she gets mad, but now when she's mad, she's like, fine. And then she starts climbing down.
You basically, you just sitting there like, I love this. It's like, you have only one subject to impress now, chieftain, and that's me. And I'm like, oh, right. Bro, this is your girlfriend. You haven't seen her in months. You've been traipsing through the woods and the trees and the slime. And now you're going to have, and she just brought you back from death, mind you. And then so Goldmoon gets pissed off, ties the staff to her back, and starts climbing down that vine. I always imagined this scene to look like Super Mario Brothers 2, and where they're climbing up and down the big vines, and they've got the little ladybugs crawling up and down.
Bupu continues to lead them once they get to the bottom. And there's a comment in here which is really great, where it's like, Bupu regarded Raistlin with deep sympathy for having to put up with these insane people. It just goes to show that everything is relative, that they all think Bupu's insane, and she's
just like, look
right
at these
back
idiots.
at him.
Who are these people? What is their problem? Well, because, they're like, hey, the Great Plaza is this way. Come on, let's go see the Highbulp. And Tana's like, wait a second. Where's the dragon? And Boop's like, what, you want the dragon now? He's like, no, I don't want the dragon. But we need to know if he's... And she's like, okay, you either want the dragon or you don't want the dragon. What is your problem? And Tana's like, forget it. And then Bupu's like, who are these doofuses? And why are you, pretty man, stuck with them? I feel shame for you. Truly, I do. It's so funny, though. It's so funny.
So they get to this large plaza, and she says, right beyond this plaza, that's where the Highbulp is. Come on, let's go. And the party is like, there's a lot of open space to cover. Is there no other way? And they pause, and it's a good thing they do, because through the mists, they catch a sight of a huge ruin, and it's the largest they've seen. And Raistlin says, oh, this was the royal palace. And inside of it, they catch sight of the black dragon, the one that we met a couple chapters back that killed Riverwind. And the dragon's in deep discussion with the Draconian, and they're arguing. And we can hear it somehow, because the Draconian states that there are invaders, and they have the brown staff. And the dragon says, no, you're mistaken. They're all dead. And I didn't feel any presence of the staff. This goes to the hubris of dragons, I feel. They have a discussion, is that like, if the invaders are above or below, and the Draconians state that there's only the elevator down. The dragon says, oh yeah, well, what about all these Gully Dwarves? How'd they get down here if it's only the elevator?
I love the idea, though, that still, like, they're going around, they're going to the plaza and see the thing, and then they see the dragon, and then Bupu grabs Tanis, like, there's the dragon. Do you want it now? And they're like, oh no. But yeah, good old Xak is super mad and sensing the Staff of Mishkal is an incredibly powerful artifact of good. So yeah, it makes sense that the evil dragon would be able to sense it. You can feel the presence. However, it's also a god-blessed item. So if it wants to hide itself, it can do that.
And we see a little bit of the hierarchy here, because the dragon says, oh, well, they must be here for the discs. And then she's like, but how do they know about them? And she's also mad at Lord Verminard, who, despite being a cleric, did not foresee the theft of the staff. I always thought this was a little weird that there was a human in charge of all these dragons when Takesis is the
dragon queen.
The dragon queen. I would have thought the dragons would be in charge of the people,
and
not the people in charge of the dragons.
The trade-off here, though, is that dragons are fiercely independent, and being evil are not necessarily prone to wanting to be controlled. They do not like to have, yes, they worship and respect Takesis, but they don't want to listen to her and they don't want to do what she's telling them to do. They're chaotic creatures. The blues are lawful, but the reds are not going to pay attention to the blues. The blacks aren't going to listen to the reds. The greens aren't going to listen to, etc. And they're all going to fight amongst themselves because they've got no desire. Whereas if you've got humans who you can, like, Takesis can grab lawful evil ones that specifically listen to her and then give them means of controlling the dragons, i.e., if you mess up, I will hit you with my god-blessed mace and just obliterate you. Or Takesis will be pissed and she will ruin your life. And those are threats that work against this. Evil turns on itself, remember? So these guys have to kind of try to make it work. But the dragons aren't happy about that, right? Like, Xak is a young black dragon, and she's like, why does this idiot get to be in charge of me? He's just a stupid cleric who's not even good enough to know that people are going to come for his staff.
You can see some of that where she doesn't like Lord Verminard, right? She knows they've tried to destroy this discs, but they can't. And then the dragon tells the Draconian, She's like, I'm leaving this ruin with the discs and the companions once they're captured.
Yeah, it's like, inform Lord Verminard. And the Draconian's like, I beg your pardon?
Yeah, the Draconian's like, don't you have to ask if you can leave? She's like, no, I don't have to ask if I have to leave. I'm a dragon.
It's like, guess what? He can be a puddle of flesh at my feet if he wants.
She's like, if you want to pretend and tell him that I'm asking him, you do that. But I'm doing what I want.
The thing that gets me here, this is one of those scenes where you're like, wait a second. Verminard's the Dragon High Lord of the Red Army. Why does he have a black dragon here? And the answer is because black dragons are easier to handle at low level parties than red dragons are. I don't know. It's this is one of those things where it's like, look, you're in a swamp. It makes sense for a swamp dwelling dragon to be down here to protect this treasure. That's a black dragon. Maybe Verminard just Takis has put this one here to protect it, so you have to deal with it. It's now in your army, whether you like it or not. Because his pet dragon, obviously, as we'll find out at the end of this book, is a ret.
It's funny here because Sturm's like, this is an impossible task, right? How are we going to do this? And Karaman says, well, maybe we should just fight the dragon out in the open. And Raistlin says, he's like, yeah, you might be able to handle the dragon's impressive physical attributes, but what are you going to do about her magic? And
the breath weapon over there.
Yeah, Sturm talks a little bit about Huma Dragonbane. And then Bupu says, like, you guys are wasting. What are you guys doing? Let's go see the Highbulp. There's this off comment where Tanis is like, I hope there's just this one dragon, right? In all the world, there's just this one, and we happen to find it. And Raislin's like, I don't think so, man.
Yeah, Raislin's like, that's a cute thought, bro. But remember the Canticle of Dragon, the Queen of Darkness has returned with her swarm of shrieking hosts, right? No, bro, this is apocalypse. The end times have come. Sorry.
Bupu leads them. We see the living area of the Gully Dwarves, and it's really depressing. And imagine, I don't know, the worst ghetto you have ever seen, or a slum, or a favela. That's the imagery that you're getting here. Except that it seems to be that the Gully Dwarves revel in it instead of recognizing that
this whole scene is just really, really disgusting.
It's rough.
Yeah. Because, like, especially, like, for me, I've been to Bombay. I've got relatives who live in Dharavelli and in, like, areas that are on the borders of or in the heart of the slums themselves. I've seen what real slums are like, and it's like, it's just, like, it's such a derogatory chapter. It's such an unnecessary scene. Because Bupu's got dignity. The rest of these Gully Dwarves do not, and they're not presented with dignity. They're not presented with any kind of kind framing.
Yeah.
They're like Gully Dwarves chasing after the rats and saying, dinner! And it's like, oh no, this is gross. They're eating rats. Like, bro, they're homeless and living in the bottom of a well of a ruined city. If this is how they survive, this is how they survive. Maybe let's be a little charitable about this.
And then they get to the Highbulp, and as they describe it, he lives in the filthiest, grossest alley in the area, right? They kind of are even saying that filthier and grosser you are, the more important of a Gully Dwarf you are, right? Like, yeah,
it just really drives home that times have changed.
And this is where we learn how the Gully Dwarves came to Xak Tsorath. They give us this little bit on how one of them found a crevice, and one of the Highbulp's ancestors found this crevice and came down, and others joined her. And until the Draconians came, this had kind of been the perfect and idyllic kind of utopia for Gully Dwarves.
Well, and even that's not very, like, charitable the way they said it, right? Like, the Bulps have long been the elite clan of Xak Tsorath ever since Nulf Bulf fell down a shaft one night in a drunken stupor. And I'm like, oh god, you can't even give them this. They move in and allow the Slud and Gulps to come down. Yeah, you've got this whole area here where there's 3 Bulps there, and it was one of them, Glungu, who had a scientific turn of mind. Certain jealous members of the Slud clan whispered that his mother had been a gnome, who developed the lift, putting to use 2 enormous iron pots that were formerly for rendering lard and building that whole chain system. So obviously there's a Bulp here who is a genius, which is to say that not all of these people are like complete filth-mongering idiots, right? Like,
yeah,
that's why I really love the novel Gully Dwarves, which hopefully someday we'll get to, which is just such a good book in terms of humanizing and giving these people like agency over their lives and language and culture. In the first book, we definitely don't get. But yeah, so they get to have their clans.
And it was great until the Draconians showed up. And then the Draconians tried to kill the Gully Dwarves. But apparently the begging of the dwarves was enough to win them over. So they just enslaved him, and now all the menial tasks are done by the Gully Dwarves for the Draconians.
Mm-hmm.
We get some insight here. Tracy and Margaret are setting up the next couple of chapters, where the Highbulp has been dreaming about how to remove the Draconians and dragons for a long time. He knows a secret way to the dragon's lair, and he's just trying to figure out if he could just get rid of the dragon and the Draconians, his life would be perfect. And then all of a sudden, the companions show up. Once he realized that they weren't here to kill him, he thinks that, oh, these are adventurers. What do adventurers do?
They kill dragons.
They'll come and solve his problem for him.
That said, I do enjoy the characterization of Phudge, because he definitely feels like one of those small-timey kings that you would read about in, like, Histories of the Silk Road or whatever, who are like, oh, foreign visitors have come to town. Surely you're here to deal with my very localized problem that you've never heard of 10 minutes before this day, but you were exactly perfect for it. And they're like, no, we're here for something entirely different. Ah, but if you wish to leave my kingdom alive, you will do the thing I'm asking you to do. It's also like a very traditional fantasy trope, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. It's like, oh, welcome to our small town where we have this problem. Look, turns out the bridge is out until you solve this little small problem.
Huh, fancy that. Looks like the bridge builder is just sick forever until you handle Matoya's cave. It's like, okay, bro, okay. Oh, man, but sometimes they do have, like, some fun here. Like, the city of Xak Tsorath had been stripped of its finery by the early bulbs who used it to decorate their throne room of their lord. Following the philosophy that if 1 yard of gold cloth is good, 40 yards is better, and totally uninhibited by good taste, the Gully Dwarves turned the throne room of the great Highbulp into a masterpiece of confusion. Heavy, frayed gold cloth swirled and draped of every available inch of wall space. Huge tapestries hung from the ceiling, some of them upside down, and they must have been beautiful, delicate colored threads blending to show scenes of city life or stories or legends from the past. But the Gully Dwarves, wanting to liven them up, painted over the cloth in garish, clashing colors. Thus, Sturm was shocked to his core of his being when confronted by a bright red Huma battling a purple-spotted dragon beneath an emerald green sky.
Your sixth graders take on the Battle of Huma.
It's like that stupid Spanish painting the old lady repainted of Jesus that makes him look like a Sesame Street character. Oh, man.
Yeah, and the decor is so bad that the book says that it caused Hasselhoff to break out in laughter and he has to leave.
I love that.
They approach the Highbulp, and the Highbulp, as he said, he's like, you're here to deal with my dragon, right?
Yeah, you got swords, go kill the dragons.
And Raistlin's like, no, we're only here to get an item from the dragon. And the Bullpup goes, no, you guys have swords. You're here to kill the dragon. and Janice tries. He's like, no, we're only after one item. The Highbulp's like, well, what if you steal all the dragon's treasure?
Yeah, what if you take their stuff and leave me with an angry dragon? That's not going to help anybody here, let alone me.
And Dennis says, no, if you help us, we'll give you all the dragon's treasure. All we need is a map or some way to get there. And then so Phudge doesn't believe him, and he thinks they're...
Oh, I love this. It had become obvious to the Highbulp that he was dealing with thieves and liars, not the heroes he had expected. He's not wrong, though. He's not wrong.
Well, and his plan is really good, actually, because he goes, okay, I'll help you. I'm going to give you the map. And he's already spying on them, so he knows what they wanted. And as soon as he gives them the map, it says if he didn't get heroes, he would make heroes. And he tells his guards, go tell the dragon that heroes are on their way to see her. So he's like, here's the secret map. And you guys go this way. And then he tells this other guard, you go tell the dragon that these people are coming for her.
It's so look, dude, the dude's got a kingdom to run, and these people are not helping him, and he needs to solve this problem one way or another. He's doing the only thing a ruler would do.
Yeah.
I don't blame him at all. The dude's been living in squalor and his people have been enslaved, and these guys are going to free him one way or another.
And, how many times does a band of adventurers come down to your secret lost city? Never in 300 years.
Yeah, and he's like, look, man, I'm not one to just, you got to strike while the iron's hot. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Phudge here. When I was a kid, I thought he was a clown shoes idiot. And to be fair, he is. But at the same time, as an adult, I respect that the man is taking care of his business.
Yeah, and that's the end of chapter 19. And in our next episode, we will hit chapter 20, the Highbulp's map, a spellbook of Fistendantalist. It's quite a mouthful.
Fistendantalist. Good old Fisty.
As I said at the beginning of the podcast, my name's Jonathan Howard. And for the time being, you can find me at False Logic on Twitter. But considering the way things are going there, next time...
Highbulp Elon the First over there.
we might be relocating to some other...
I mean, it could be said that all of us Twitter followers are just Gully Dwarves. We can't kind higher than two. We live in filth and squalor, and we've got a Highbulp running the show.
But for now, my name's Jonathan Howard, and you can find me at False Logic. Shivam, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at ElectroTowel, and next week we get to see some real action.